Welcome to the Christian Woman Leadership Podcast, where we hope to inspire you to embrace your God-given gifts, skills, and passions in order to lead with confidence. We want you to remember that you are fearfully and wonderfully made in the image of God, and you are fully loved by Him.
You have been designed on purpose by God with unique gifts and passions in order to love and lead those around you. I'm your host, Esther Littlefield, a pastor's wife, business owner, mom, and writer.
And I'm Esther's co-host, Holly Kane. I'm a wife, mom, and business owner. I also write at hollykane.org, where I focus on my passion for women's ministry.
Together, we chat about important issues that Christian women leaders face. In addition, we interview other women just like you who lead in various roles, from church to community to business. Through this podcast, we offer you encouragement, tools, and resources to help you on your leadership journey. We are so glad you're here with us. Hi, friend, and welcome to episode 133 of the Christian Woman Leadership Podcast. Happy New Year. I am so excited to be kicking off 2021 with you and that you are choosing to tune in to this podcast today. So I am grateful for you, whether you have been here a long time or whether you are brand new around here. I just want to say welcome and thank you for joining us. This podcast exists to help you find resources, encouragement, and support as a Christian woman leader. And our plan is to continue doing that in this coming year. So if you haven't already done so, make sure that you hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss any of our future episodes. All right, today, Holly and I are diving into a conversation with Tammy Birklid, all about leading as a female in a male-dominated industry. Tammy is the owner of a commercial general contracting business in Tacoma, Washington. She lives there with her husband, Jason, and she's the proud mother of 2 grown children, a son and a daughter. The Birklids attend Whitewater Church, where Tammy is on the executive team, and she's an associate pastor. Now, Tammy is passionate about helping men and women work together for the best possible outcome. She believes in lifting each other up and respecting each other's unique gifts. Then that will bring a whole balanced perspective to business and ministry. So Holly and I talk with Tammy about her leadership journey, about how she transitioned into her role as the owner of this construction company. And she shares so many insights into things like mentoring, equality in the workplace, and holding true to your faith and your values in spite of what others may think. There is so much goodness in this episode, and I'm excited to kick off the year with this conversation with Tammy. So let's go ahead and dive in to this conversation today. Welcome, Tammy, to the podcast. We are super happy to have you with us today. So we're going to dive right in and get started. I would love to have you start us off by telling us a little bit about what your life and leadership looks like right now.
Sure. And thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here. I have a couple different roles as far as leadership right now. I have my leadership role in my company. I am the sole owner of a general contracting business, which is not usually a woman-owned business. 2020 is the first year that I took over, and I'm pretty much 100% on my own, but I have been there since 2007 and been in a partner since 2014. That is a crazy world right now because of COVID and because of everything that we're trying to deal with, both out in the field on construction as well as in the office, dealing with people's, well-being, their mental well-being, trying to keep morale up. It's something. And then my other leadership role is in my church. I'm actually on the executive team we kind of, work together to make the decisions for our church. There's 3 of us on that team, 2 men and myself, one of those being our lead pastor. And we are in a crazy world as far as that goes as well. We can't gather. We're trying to figure out how to reach people right now in this kind of an environment. And we had to take a hard shift in both my work and my church in how we deal with people, and everything is online now. So I'm so proud of both my work and my church of how we shifted and have adapted and are doing the best we can in this kind of an environment.
So it sounds like you've had a lot of curveballs in both arenas of your life this year.
Yes.
Yeah.
As so many of us have.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think there's a single soul who can say, well, it's not been an effect for me. I just breezed through it.
Yeah.
And, some people have had tremendous hardship, and some people have been blessed to be able to pivot and, make an adjustment and are finding new ways to succeed. I think innovation is the key to life right now, and grace on top of grace on top of grace.
Yeah.
For yourself and others.
Yeah, you definitely have got that right. So I would love for you to tell us a little bit about your leadership journey and kind of how you got to where you are now.
My work perspective, I have pretty much always been in construction. I had a wonderful mentor, Roger Collins, with Sierra Construction, and he brought me on in my 20s, which was a very long time ago. Not going to tell you exactly how long ago, but it was a long time ago. And he shared with me everything he knew about job cost accounting, which is very specific to construction. And then just kind of taught me about the contract side of it. He taught me about how to deal with employees, how to be an employer of choice, meaning that even when people can get jobs anywhere else, they still want to be with you. And keep in mind, very forward-thinking man. This is 20 plus years ago. He's sharing these philosophies with me. And he was just a major impact in me knowing if I ever had an opportunity to own a business, I wanted to emulate so many of the things that he put into place way back then. So learning construction from him, from the internal side, like the admin side and the paperwork side, I worked with him for 7 years. And then for the next 7 years, I ran an electrical contracting business. So learned the subcontractor world instead of the big general world, a very specific electrical services and how to deal with a lot more clients. And then after that, which now it's been 13 years, I went to work for Merit, where I again found an incredible leader, mentor in Len Zarelli, who had been in the business his whole life. His father started the business, and he was willing to share with me not only even more of the contract side and the risk aversion and the insurance things that come up. There's so much in owning a business, but he encouraged me to get out into the field and be the person that was at the meetings when I had never built a building. And that was a scary place to be, but it was really necessary. If I was going to be taken seriously, I had to have the respect of the field, and I had to have the respect of our design teams, architects, engineers. So gratefully, I had him to come back to each day and say, I wrote down like 17 things. I don't know what they are. Can you help me? So between Len and Google, I was always able to, come around and come back with answers. And I just learned so much. And we did that for 2 years where I was out there learning, and he would teach me and be patient with me at the end of each day and kind of share with me what details I needed to ask about next, and kind of just explain, this is how this happened, and this is what you need to do when it does happen.
I love that. I love how you shared specifically. It sounds like you had two really influential mentors in this journey that have helped you to get to this point, that it's just so impactful. So, one of the reasons we wanted to chat with you, Tammy, is because it's very unique to have a woman CEO or owner in construction. So could you share a little bit more about your experiences in that role as a female, and if there have been particular challenges or things that you've had to overcome as the owner of your company?
Yeah, I think that if I had not had those two men, they're very generous with their knowledge and not being concerned with whether or not I was a man or how I was going to take that knowledge forward. They simply wanted to teach anyone who was willing to listen. Because of them, I started to feel some level of confidence in each step of the journey. So I would say, first and foremost, having a mentor who believes in you is super critical and who is willing to invest in you. There's oftentimes when people use their knowledge as job security, or they maybe view you as a threat, and they're no longer willing to share. And so you've hit a ceiling there that you can't get beyond. I was very blessed to have men in the industry that, they simply saw something in me that they were excited about and they wanted to invest in me. And so I'm just super grateful that they were there and that they were patient and that they were generous with their knowledge. And then once I became a partner in 2014 at Merit, Len not only continued to teach me the ins and outs of the technical side of construction, he has worked with me every step of the way for my success. So even now, even though he's not my partner anymore, he's available to me every day. He checks in on me. How's everything going? If anything comes up in my world, he's my first go-to person because he's experienced this stuff. He's managed this company for 35 years, and he's so generous, even to this day, to be my biggest supporter. What he wants is for me to succeed. And we believe, I guess I believe very strongly that a legacy is not just about what you've done during your life. It's more what is carried on in your absence. And so Len has worked really hard to honor his father's legacy and then to find someone that he believes in that will carry the legacy on and honor him in his absence. He's retired right now. He's learning new things, finding his new way around, because it's hard to step away from something that's been under your care for such a long time. But he is non-invasive to me. He's like, I'm here if you need me. And that's as far as that goes. So I guess the biggest thing is having a mentor. And I believe everybody should have 5. I think a handful is a good, and they should be balanced. They should be different kind of people because you want someone watching out for your spiritual well-being. You want someone watching out for your mental well-being and honestly, your physical well-being, and just sort of guiding you, that knows you well enough to be able to speak up when they see you doing something that's maybe out of character or something that they think maybe you wouldn't be as proud of that. As far as challenges, there's no question that it's been different for me than it would be for a man in my shoes. There's no question about that at all. But I'm not bothered by that. I do understand that there are strengths men bring to the table. There are strengths women to bring to the table, and that we're not the same. I don't want to be the same. I'm happy with the fact that I bring emotion to the table, that my empathy is something that is actually an asset. It's not a weakness. The way I read people is different than maybe some men would be able to do, things they don't see, details that they pick up on are on the technical side, or they're already into the project in their mind. And I'm watching the owner. How is he feeling? Does he appear to trust us? Does he have concerns? Is there something that's bothering him? And those are the things that I'm always watching for. And having men watching for something else and having me watching for those things, that's a beautiful thing. That is the best of both worlds. And the client gets the benefit of all of that. And there have been times, I think, where people second guess me. And I can tell you, I went to an architectural meeting one time with my business development person, and he's a man, and the architect was a man. And they started talking, and I was taking notes because I hadn't met the man before. And he made the assumption and said something to the effect of, does your secretary need to, do we need to start over for the notes? And I didn't say a word because it really doesn't, I think, how would it serve me if I came off offended in this situation? There are certain things that we just expect and we think we know, we make assumptions. And that happens
Right.
both ways. Women do that as well. So, luckily for me, my business development manager said, actually, Tammy owns the company and he did it for me. And that was fine. And I think the architect maybe felt a little uncomfortable with his choice of words, but yeah, it happens, but it's all about how you react to it. I think you can't control other people's perception, but you can control how you react to it. And so I've always tried to be strong when it's necessary and recognize when vulnerability or a softness is required, because it's a balance.
Oh, I love everything you're saying. I think for me, when I think about those type of things, I like to come at, like that situation that you were in, I like to come at that from a very strong perspective. And I'm not saying that I would, chew him out or anything like that, but I would be like, well, actually, I'm the owner, like I would say for myself. And it's just so nice to hear another perspective of the fact that, you're just able to let it lie and let it be whatever it's going to be. So I really like that perspective from you and how you choose to, even the question that you asked of yourself, like, how is this going to turn out for me? How would this be beneficial for me if I sort of staked my claim or whatnot? So, yeah. So I would love for you to chat with us a little bit about your transition of leadership. It sounds like you were with the company for a while and then you were a partner and then you became owner. And I'd love to hear about that transition from a business perspective, as well as sort of a male-led company into a female-led company, if that has any bearing on it at all.
Oh, it surely does. I think there was a time where construction, and it still is happening in some ways, but construction was very much a good old boy network, which there's many professions that were dealing with that in. So there are probably people, and I know there were people that didn't feel they could work for a woman. And so, there are also people who don't feel they want to have a construction company that's owned by a woman. There's just an assumption that I'm not as qualified or as capable as a man. And the thing is, with any business, it's who you surround yourself with. So I had Len. I always could go to him and I had him as my asset if I had a question or needed anything. But also the people that work at Merit are incredible men that bravely stuck it out. When I came in, there were things that I had learned from Roger that they weren't doing yet at Merit. And so I started right away in 2007, like, oh, we need to do this. We need to do this. And I definitely got a lot of pushback. Like, who do you think you are? This is how we do business. And it was not from ownership. It was from people that were, the project managers were like, I don't want to have to do all this stuff. That's accounting's job. But I had learned a set of best practices that I felt strongly about and that I had to bring in and sort of incorporate. At first, there was some angry days, but when I could show them the value, how it would benefit them, and I stayed focused on that, they came around and they're like, maybe there's something to this. This could actually be helpful. And then now it's just the way we do business. There's not even a thought about it. And it's been that way since 2007. So yes, I think there were many steps along the way. When I became a partner, prior to that, there were people who thought that they were more deserving. There were people that had been there longer. And those men were very upset about the fact that I was chosen to carry on the business. And then there were also people out in the design world that were like, what does she know? How is she going to take over this company that's been in business for 60 years? What does she bring to the table? And so in all of those situations, I had to think about their perspective, be understanding of their perspective, and find ways to prove myself. Not that I had built a building, but that I was smart in who I brought to surround myself with, and very careful and thoughtful to ensure that everybody was served well. The client, the design team, and the rest of my company. So it's like you can say a lot of things, but you kind of have to prove it. And the only way you can prove something is through your actions and through being consistent and showing them the value, as opposed to using words like, I'm strong, I can handle this, I'm a good leader. Who have you led? Who's following you? Are people following you? Because that's how you can gauge that someone's a good leader. So I started by being an effectual leader, and everything that I tried to do was based on taking action and demonstrating, this is what I want for you. There's nothing that's beneath me. I'll do any piece or part of this. It's similar as like a servant leader. And I think it's a good approach, whether it's in business or it's in church.
I love that. And you just mentioned this idea of servant leadership. And that's actually something that Holly and I did a whole episode on, because we feel that's such an important trait for us as Christian leaders to have, for sure. So what are some of the other leadership traits or characteristics that you feel like you've tried to cultivate in yourself that have allowed you or helped you to advance and be able to now take on this role in your company?
I think the number one thing for me has always been be who you say you are, which goes hand in hand with do what you say you're going to do. If you asked anyone in my company what they have heard, like till they probably want to bang their head against the wall, it's that. Be who we say we are. So we're telling the client at the front end that you can rest assured that we're going to be your advocate, that we're going to bring our best selves to the table. We're going to be innovative. We're going to find ways to either save you money or bring you additional value for the same price. We're going to be trustworthy. We're going to be team players, all of those things. You could do that right for 8 months out of a 10-month project and have one problem in the 9th month and everything's gone. Unfortunately, that's how we are as humans. We remember the bad or the difficult more so than all the efforts that went to get us to this point. So, I always mention that to them. And finish strong is another one that's really important to me, because in construction, it can get really frustrating depending on what you're dealing with. Sometimes you have an owner that's changing their mind a lot and it's impacting your ability to do your job. And you're trying to explain that to them, but they have a dream and they have this idea in their head. And you have to understand that this is their dream. And so you have to take that into consideration and sort of hear that and act on what they want as well. At the same time, reminding them, this is actually what you have here is actually the Taj Mahal, and your budget is actually more like a smaller steeple type church, So, and that's hard. It's hard to say those things. You're not the fun guy when you throw that stuff out there, but that's who we say will be at the beginning. We promise them that we'll steward their resources, and we promise them that we'll keep the rest of the team in line and that we'll be their advocate. So it's our job. And on the days when it's hard, that's what we talk about. We remind ourselves that that's what sets us apart. That's why we're different. And that's why every person that works for me is proud of where they work, because they all carry that same philosophy and they know that they can depend on their coworkers to be who they say they're going to be. And they know that we're people of character. I think for me, and this is 100% true, there are many hires that I've made that maybe don't have the skill set that they need when they come on, but they're people of character. And I believe if you have character, that you have the heart of merit of who we are, we can teach you almost anything. So if you have a bunch of people that you've gathered together because they have strong character, you're going to succeed.
It sounds like you've built a culture of character there, and that it's something that people sort of wear on their sleeve, if you will, and are proud of. I really love that. So you've mentioned mentorship quite a bit. And so I'm assuming that there aren't many women leaders in your industry to actually mentor you. So I'm wondering if it makes a difference to you that you don't have sort of a female leader that's gone ahead of you to mentor you. Do you think that's important? Do you think that matters? I'd love to hear your perspective on that, because it sounds like you've learned amazing things from these male leaders that you've had. But I wonder if there's a female perspective that you feel like should or could be there.
Well, I think with that, I guess I would look at it the same way I would look at it, say, if you're a man and you grew up without a father, you don't know maybe what you do want to do, but you definitely know right away what you don't want to do. And then you build on that. And the harder you work at turning into, say, the father you wish you had, the more you then have an opportunity to mentor other people and to share those things and to help them see their own gifts and to see where they're talented and how they can do better. And it's inspiring to people to think, well, how could he be such a wonderful father when he didn't really even have an influence, a daily influence? And yet, man, he's on top of it and he's amazing. I definitely have had people in my life aside from work that have been mentors from a female perspective. And I think leadership is something you carry everywhere in your world. It's not just your work, it's in your family, it's in your church experiences, it's in your volunteer experiences. It can be even like sometimes your children's teachers that you see something in them that you're like, man, I want that for myself. I love the way that she does that and can bring something to life inside my child. And then you say, I need to figure out what that is, where that comes from, and how to grow that inside myself. So I think the most important thing is that when you grow into a leader or you get to some position that you have the possibility of influencing other people or impacting other people, that you stay true to yourself. Being in a man's world, what I've noticed sometimes is women come up and they get into a leadership position, and what they've had as examples is men that don't necessarily demonstrate vulnerability. They don't necessarily check in on their staff and how are you doing? Is everything going okay on the inside? Like, I see that work's going okay and you're putting a lot into that, but are you okay? Rather, they demonstrate to them that if you're not working 12 hours a day, then you're really not working and we're not getting our best out of you. So for me, it was really important when I got into leadership to be okay with the fact that I'm a woman and I don't want to emulate the things in men that maybe don't reflect the strengths a woman can bring to a business. I think it's so great to be able to demonstrate to my staff how much they mean to me, how much I care about them, and to be able to say the things that are soft that maybe they've never heard before, that I need them, that I could not do this without them. I don't have to put up a facade. I want to be honest and transparent with them and let them know that I am strong. I'm strong when I need to be, but I also am okay to demonstrate emotion because I'm a woman and I'm proud to be a woman. And I think it brings a positive thing to the table.
Yeah, Tammy, I love how you're sharing this idea of the balance that the men and women in these workplaces can bring, that we don't want it to be all exclusively one or the other. And so that kind of makes me think of the issue of equality in the workplace. We hear a lot about this issue, whether it's pay equality, opportunity, all of that. And so I'm just curious what your perspective is on equality in the workplace and what that would mean to you.
What that means to me is that whoever's the most qualified for the job should be doing the job. And it makes no difference to me whether that's a man or a woman. And I really, truly believe that that's the way I was treated. And so as a result of that, I want to honor that. And I have no agenda to say, women need to be in this field or in this place. Yes, I want to empower women. I want to encourage women. But I truly believe that it needs to be the person that's best qualified for the job. That serves the people under them. It serves the people above them. It serves the company overall. It serves your clients. But I'm all for growing any individual that wants to be in a position, but maybe isn't right for that position right now. I invest heavily in training for all of my staff. They all know they can come to me with any suggestion or request, and that I will make sure that they get the training that they have. I have 2 superintendents right now that are going through classes that take away from their workday, because I understand they also have families. So I'm okay to pay for the class. They're better for it. And they come back and give me feedback. And then we figure out, how do we disseminate this information across the board to everybody? We absolutely have had women project managers in the past. We have an outstanding, strong controller that's a woman. And I see all of these people at their skill set level. And I just simply I don't think that it's really about equality. It's about bringing your strengths to the table and having an equal opportunity to demonstrate your strengths, I think, is important. Not ever looking away from someone simply because they don't fit something that's inside your head of what you thought that position was going to be. But I think the important part is giving them equal opportunities and then helping grow them if they're not ready for the spot.
I really love that perspective. And I think that it's so valuable to have someone and I love that that is a perspective that was shown to you, and then you can then pass on and really make part of your culture. So I want to switch gears just a little bit to talk about, you are also a leader within your church and not quite fully make that leap yet, but I would love to know how your faith and even, position within your church, however you want to look at it, how that has impacted the way that you do business.
Yeah, I think that it absolutely affects me every day. I look at the Lord as my Father watching me, and I want him to be proud. And so the way I behave in my everyday life, I'm always thinking about that. Is this something I can be proud of? Is this something that I feel honors my value system? There are most definitely things that come up in work, in business, that sometimes you have to ask yourself, am I going to take a stand on this and potentially destroy a relationship because I think I'm right? And the answer for me is always no. What we say, if you had the opportunity to talk to my staff, I ask them, what's fair? What's fair from your perspective? Because that's where I'm trying to go. Sometimes, so just as a quick example, we would have a bid that was done. So someone gave us a price and they missed something. And so my question first is, how did they miss it? Was it not clearly identified on the plans? And if there's something like that we can say, okay, we can have some culpability here, we can understand how that happened, then my next go-to is, what's fair? What's our percentage that we need to share in that? Because the team members that I have as subcontractors, we've been working with some of these people for more than 60 years. We have one firm that literally was on the very first job we ever did, which was in 1957. You don't maintain relationships like that with people by taking a stand where you only think of yourself. Also, I have to think about my project managers every single time I make a decision. If I feel like I want to go in there and be a bully, it's going to make their job so much harder. And then the superintendent that's trying to get somebody to do him a favor out in the field, not going to happen if that's my character and that's how I handle things. So I think it definitely affects me every day. And, I'll be honest, having a small business allows you a little bit more freedom in regards to your faith, maybe than if you were in a corporate culture. And so I probably push that out a little bit more than a lot of companies do. And I'll share something that inspires me. And there definitely is a faith component, and where it might not be acceptable in another area. And I always try to be respectful. I'm not trying to push anything on anyone. I just simply, sometimes I truly believe there's something that will inspire them or will help them see a new way to think about something. And I think they know it comes from my heart, comes from a good place. And so generally, they're very aware of my position on my faith. And I generally can share that without feeling like I've imposed anything. And I tell them all, I'm praying for you. When something, is not going right in their life, I let them know. I have one-on-ones with all of my staff, every single person, at least every 2 weeks. They last at least a half an hour, sometimes an hour. And during that time, I find out what's really happening in their life, in addition to what's happening at work, what's going well, what's not going well. And I always let them know that I'll be praying for whatever the specific situation is that's happening, whether it's a celebration or whether it's something that's difficult. So, it definitely affects my life. It affects every part of me. I think to be authentic, you have to be the same person through and through, whether you're at church on Sunday or you're at work on Monday.
Yeah, I think a lot of times we feel like we have to, if we're working in a corporate setting or a secular setting, that we have to somehow hide our faith or kind of keep it under wraps, right? So I'm curious if you've ever had a situation, though, in terms of your faith in this role as a leader in your company, if you've ever had times where you have either been asked to or been in a situation that would compromise your faith or your values, that you've had to kind of make a choice between maybe getting a job or compromising your faith, and just how you've navigated those types of situations.
Yeah. A couple of really interesting things certainly have come up where I felt like the owner, which happened to be a church, which was especially difficult and challenging in my heart, they didn't want to accept any part of a problem. And it definitely wasn't our problem, but I was willing to accept a part of the problem. And there were other design consultants that should have also come to the table. And it could have been a legal battle that I would have won without even a thought, because there was clearly nothing that my company did that could have been blamed. And I believe that many people would have taken that route. It was, $45,000 situation, so it wasn't something that was just light. And so in that situation, I made the choice not to do anything further. I simply took the hit and tried to get out as quickly as we could with the most positive outcome. Try to continue to be kind, be honorable, even though the client, who was a pastor, maybe wasn't being what I thought should be. I felt that there was nothing to be gained by me going down a road where I questioned his character, or where I shared with him, your behavior is actually affecting my staff, questioning that you're a pastor, and how could a pastor act like this? You just sort of do the best you can in those situations and try to get out of it if you can, with as little of damage as possible. Another thing that I guess I would definitely say was one of the most challenging things for me to do during the recession, we had some jobs that we had to take on that maybe their line of business was not something that I was in alignment with and I was in agreement with. Nothing illegal, but just simply things that were like, that's not really something I want my name associated with. In that situation, my faith and my business, I had to ask myself, I had to keep things in perspective and recognize, if I don't do this work, that maybe I'm not proud of what this building is and what these people do inside this building, I'm going to have to lay people off. And if I have to lay people off, what does that do to them? And how are they going to find another job? Because those people end up being your family. So I will say that there have been times where I've had to make a compromise the other way as well, where I've had to do something that I wished I didn't have to do, but I had to take into consideration how it would impact the whole rest of the company and every individual that I feel responsible for caring for. And we built a couple buildings that we wouldn't have in other circumstances. If we had had more work available to us, I would have turned it away.
Mm. Such hard decisions to make as a leader, right? Yeah.
It's hard. I mean, I think you always want to stay true to your values. And I hope that I didn't talk myself into believing that that's what I was doing. But I truly believe that it was what was necessary and that I had a responsibility to all of those people. And so I'm satisfied with the choice I made. I won't say happy.
Good. So I'd love for you to chat with us about whether or not you've had any lessons that you've learned from the business side of things that have translated somehow into the work that you've done in the church setting, and most particularly with men in the church setting, and where you are on sort of a leadership position and you are the only female. If any lessons from business have affected either how you handle things or your perspective on that or anything.
Well, if anything, it's the other way.
Okay.
I definitely came in to my relationship with the pastors at the church with a very open mind, because to me, there's not any blocks, there's no barriers, because I've grown up in my career working with men. So it's not an issue. And I just assume, I guess, the best that they're going to give me a fair shot. So I would definitely say, I think I try really hard to read people and understand what matters to them, what makes them tick. And loyalty has always been a really big thing. It was a big thing to Roger. It was a big thing to Len. And it's a huge thing to me as a result of that. And I think that has been a way that I have grown in my career, has been because of that loyalty. I think that I have that same situation at church. I'm very open about how I feel about the great things that our pastor has done. I'm very vocal about it and make sure he knows that I'm loyal to him, that I believe in him. I believe in the Lord speaking to him and what we're doing as a church. So I think that would be the one way I would say has been helpful to me. I didn't have any barriers or any concerns about working with men because of my experience with the mentors that I've had in my business career. But I will say that working with George Bedlian, our pastor at Whitewater, he has taught me so many things and helped me see ways I need to grow, and probably more so in like the whole well-rounded person than anything, because business is business and you aren't going into every aspect of your life. But George has helped me be able to know, see blind spots in myself. When I realize I'm doing something, a blind spot at church, I can guarantee you it's happening at work. And so when I recognize those things, or, he gently shares, that might be an issue or something I want to work on, he always provides me a resource, provides me a book, or he provides me so many books, in fact, that we've gotten to the point can you tell me which chapters I need to read? Because my stack is very high. But he's all about growing people into their full potential in their faith and in their gifts, and very strength-based oriented. And so I have taken all of those things and apply them at my work. And, maybe a podcast he shares or whatever, I love those things. And then I take that and apply it to my business. I believe I've grown as a leader exponentially under his leadership. And, I had a lot of experience in leadership. I had been doing it for a long time, but I wasn't necessarily the most effective I could be. I wasn't the most aware of how maybe some of the things I was doing would affect other people. So I would say it's more the other way around. I believe that the experience within my church, not just with George, but so for instance, like I help with the production team as well. I'm the only woman on that team, and it's a team of 7. And I get to sit and watch and hear 6 men's perspective once a week for like an hour and a half, and kind of how they all interact and how all that stuff goes. That grows me. I believe I'm a better person, and of course a better leader, because of every one of those people that finds a way to share something that I wasn't aware of before. And I think I impact them just in the fact that I sort of try to get them to break down the man barriers and let's be vulnerable and talk about what's really bothering us. Because I can see we're dancing around quite a bit here, but let's talk about what we really need to talk about. So again, like it's both sides coming together, doing what they're really good at, being willing to share it, and then also emulating, like, so that someone else can grow in that same area.
Yeah. So much wisdom that you've shared, Tammy. And I think one of the things that's really standing out to me is just your attitude of humility and like willingness to learn along your journey every step of the way, and not kind of have this like, well, I'm a woman, so they should give me this opportunity kind of. Sometimes we get into that mode of like, well, women haven't had the opportunity, so it's our turn now. And it just sounds like you've really put yourself in a place of wanting to learn, wanting to grow, and not getting prideful along the way. That being said, it also sounds like you've had some pretty incredible mentors, both, in the secular space and in the faith space. But there might be a woman listening who is a leader and really hasn't found that mentor yet, or had open doors to her to step into some of these spaces that may be more male dominated, but maybe she has a dream or a goal to get there. So what advice would you give to her if she's in that spot and needs to kind of know where to go next?
Yeah, I think that it's always important to ask, can you take something else on? So be brave and courageous in what you're willing to take on as far as your workload, and then demonstrate and prove yourself. Like, I am valuable. This is how I bring value to the table. It doesn't have to be in words. It should be in actions. And I know that was a way that I've always been able to impact people, is by being a go-getter and not being afraid of work. And then I think just being, there's absolutely going to be some times where the man that you're coming up against is not going to be a person that's a mentor. So being aware of that, and, that this is not something you want to invest in. This relationship is not the one for you, because there are many wonderful men out there that are good and kind and pure, and they just want to be helpful. So if you're not in a working relationship with someone like that, I just want to encourage you that there are other people out there. And so you probably haven't found your space. And then, just embrace the fact that we're different, and don't try to be a man. Don't try to make the man a woman, because that wouldn't be good either. We'd be, emotional all the time at work. And I don't know if we had nothing but women, I don't think that would be a good thing either. I think it's simply appreciating, lifting up what each one brings to the table. So if you can find ways to encourage a man that you think is a mentor, or even just someone that you think maybe needs encouragement, I think that goes so far. I said once at church, I would like my title to be professional encourager. Like, that would be like my favorite thing. I love doing that. And I love how it lights people up. So whether you're in a position where you're trying to gain from a leadership perspective, it's always helpful to encourage others and to be a light. Don't be complaining. Don't talk about what we can't do. Talk about what you can do. Be a person that comes in with solutions instead of being part of the problem or complaining about the problem. Those are the things I think that make a difference, that make you stand out. And if you are that and someone doesn't appreciate you, find someone who will. And, I'd be happy to be a mentor to anyone. I love women working to be the best that they can be. And if they share my philosophy that men and women working together is an awesome thing and it can make the world a better place, I'm happy to do anything to lift them up and make things easier for them.
Mm. So many good nuggets of wisdom in there. So we on the podcast believe that leaders are learners, and you've alluded to that in what you've talked about. And we know that our guests usually have really great resources to share, a book or podcast, other resources that you've learned from lately. So we'd love to know, what is one thing that you've been learning lately that you could share with our audience?
Well, I would say there's without a doubt that I'm learning to be flexible. I'm learning to be innovative. I think it's important in times like this to lead with faith and not fear. I think it's important to do careful research about what you're hearing and what you're learning, and make sure you're only sharing back out to others what's truth and you can know is truth. As a leader, you have a responsibility to sort of guide, whether it's your church or your family or your work. And you need to do that with what's true and try to keep fear out of it and control what's coming into your home or what's coming onto your car radio or whatever that looks like, so that we can be strong and believe that good is to come, that there's something in front of us that's going to be much better than what we're going through now. So stay the path and be innovative, but what you need to do, and just stay the path and keep taking one step forward each day, even when it feels hard.
I love that. Such great advice to wrap us up today. So thank you again, Tammy, for being with us, for sharing your journey and your wisdom. And we would love to know, what is the best way for people to connect with you? And if you want to share any of your links or socials, and we'll make sure this all goes in the show notes as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So meritnw.com is our website for our company. You can always fill out a form in there. If you have any request for information, it goes straight to me. Or my Facebook or Instagram is just at Tammy Birklid.
All right. Well, thanks again, Tammy, for being with us today.
Such a joy. I appreciate that you guys are spreading great things and asking, difficult questions and wanting to grow people. So thank you both for what you do.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on the Christian Women Leadership Podcast. If you enjoyed this conversation, come and join us in our private Facebook community. We would love to get to know you better so that we can make sure the podcast is providing what you need. Plus, you can share your questions and ideas, and you'll be surrounded by incredible Christian women leaders. To join the group, visit estherlittlefield.com/group. Now, don't forget, your leadership matters, and it's time for you to embrace your gifts and lead with confidence.